Oh, we missed Ben's whole spiel.
I'm sure it's on page a lot of it.
And I'm gonna make copies, that could be, let's do that. I'm gonna make copies of what we signed tonight, and give back to you guys on Wednesday. Yeah, we'll have it for you on Wednesday. Right. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You good?
I'm still waiting on, no, I'm waiting on 2 more. Sorry, Gail. You can start, I'll stay everywhere.
Okay, guys, get this show on the road. Don't forget your phone and things over there.
Oh, yeah.
How many of you are originally from Florida? Wow, proud. How many of you are originally from one of the United States? How many of you are from the original 13 colonies? Most of you don't even know what I'm talking about. It's called basically New York down to South Carolina and Georgia, which is the general area I came from. How many of you were born outside of the United States? Where?
Jamaica.
Jamaica.
I'm from Turkey.
Turkey? You know any brokers in Turkey?
So what?
You know any real estate brokers in Turkey?
Yeah, I do.
Then as soon as you get your license, if not now, you're gonna make contact with them and say, if you need any help with your customers who wanna buy or sell here or lease here, I'll be more than glad to help you.
All right.
How many of you have gone to our website? Good. So in other words, if somebody asks you, what company you going with, you have an answer for that. If you don't, you better go get it. Because they're not gonna be too impressed with you when you can't even tell them who you really work for. And this company is confusing. We got 18 or 19 different companies, all under the same umbrella, but they are separate companies. Very unusual for the real estate. Call a banker. Umpteen offices, but they're all owned by, say, cars. Umpteen offices, but it's just one company.
Good luck, guys. You all have
Thank
my
you.
number, my email, if you need anything, reach out, otherwise I'll see you towards the end of class.
You can just stick that in my door.
Are we going out? Oh, yeah, my phone.
Yeah.
Where'd I leave my phone?
Why are you here?
To learn more about real estate.
Good answer.
Money.
Become an agent. That's a good answer. And to make money.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. It's all bullshit, but it's a good answer. See, you answered what you thought I wanted to hear.
We're here to learn how to pass a test.
Hell no. If that's all you're here for, go home. I've worked 42 years to improve my profession, not to help people pass tests. I only help them pass tests so I can keep my job. But that's not my objective. I expect you to participate. I ask a question, I expect an answer. I don't give a shit if you have to guess. Because if you can't take the pressure in here, how the hell are you going to take the pressure on the test? How many of you love taking tests? I asked that question because I knew it would be easier to count the bodies. Then, how are you going to pass the test if you can't take exams? And exams make you nervous. How are you going to do that? You're going to do exactly what I tell you to, when I tell you to, and how I tell you to. You don't like it? There's the door. Comprendez-vous? Because the last couple of classes I started out nicey nice. No nicey nice. Because I think you're like 3-year-olds. And if you're not careful, being nice and nice is not necessarily gonna work out too well. Okay, so, actually, third grade, I'll elevate you a little bit. Which means you're gonna do what at the end of the night? Before you leave? We obviously have no teachers in here.
Go home and
What's the
study.
last thing you have the kids do before they leave the classroom? Put their chairs in. So when I say third grade to you, as you're getting ready to leave, that should trigger, oh, he wants me to push my chair in. Because if I said put your chair in, for some reason that doesn't register. But seriously, you're not going to learn anything at home. You're going to review at home. You're going to take practice quizzes to see what it is you don't know. Because a lot of times you think you understand something I'm talking about, then you get home and you go to take a quiz on it, and you're missing 40% of them. You know, where's the problem? The problem could be because you can't read. Now, the exam, let me get this out of the way. The exam's 100 questions. All multiple guess. How much math is the next words coming off your lips, right?
That's exactly.
About 10 to 14. However, understand math is not always arithmetic. Math is a concept. And a lot of times you're answering the concept, you're not working a problem. Yet it is still considered math. Math versus arithmetic. Arithmetic has 4 functions. What are they? Multiply, divide,
And subtract.
and subtract. I realized that was a hard thing. Right now, who are you? Student. Okay. When you walk through that door, who are you? A member of the public. Unless you have a license. You've never been what you're about to become. Your only knowledge of real estate is your own personal buying, selling, leasing stuff. So you're learning to be something you've never been. Which means you have to think like a real estate agent, not like a buyer or seller. Because if you don't think like a real estate agent, you won't answer questions like one. And this material is not about you becoming an investor. This is about you becoming a real estate agent who is someone that does what?
Flip houses.
Helps the public with their housing needs. Who am I right now?
You're a member of the public.
Members of the public. Now who am I?
Student.
I am now a real estate agent. And I must, from this point on, think like one. So every time you stop thinking like one and you see me heading towards the door, somebody should stop me. Because if you don't look at this stuff from the proper perspective, you can get it wrong. Ben made a comment about the fact that the law does not always make sense. I assume all of you had a mother, right? At least one someone. Or you are currently a mother. Or you're somewhere in between that. And they're called Mama's rules. What happened when your mom told you to do something, you said, why do I have to do that? You got the shit knocked out of you.
Absolutely.
Maybe not today's generation, but I'd have got my little butt.
Yes, I did.
Why? Mom's rules is, how does that work? What's the mentality? It's because I said so. I made the mistake a couple times of, and my favorite one is, look at me, I'm talking to you. Moms do that all the time. Now, my thinking is, why do you need to see my eyes? I don't hear with my eyes, I hear with my ears. One time I said that. Was not a smart move. So sometimes it is because mom said so. And it's been that way for 50 or 60 years. The people that created and the mentality behind it are long dead and gone. But it's still applicable to today's world. Book changes about 20% every year. Some of its laws, some of its principles and practices. It's not a static world. It constantly evolves. You have to get a 75 on the class exam. No, sorry, you have 70 on the class exam and 75 on state. We're going to talk about what I'm about to say 2 times. Now, and when we look at it in the book. Beyond that, we will not discuss it. What happens if I fail? I have to take the test over. What do you think happens? No. I'm talking. Now, I'm talking about the class test. Wait, you got to pass the class test. Don't worry about the state exam here. What happens if I fail? I have to wait for 30 days, and then I can retake the exam. Now, assuming that you don't have to remember the second part of that, you pass the class exam, I've given you a passing slip. You go take the state exam. It will take you 1 time, 10 times, 15 times, however many times it takes to pass. The only problem is your application is only good for 2 years from the time they receive it. So sometimes during that 2 years, you need to do what? Pass. What else did I forget? Your first assignment. And probably the most important one, because I want you ready to make money as soon as I can get a license in your hand. I don't want you to start figuring out what to do. What's the most important item or thing I need in order to be a successful real estate agent? Customers. There are customers in Turkey. And he's going to go find them. But if he's smart, he's going to work through the agents over there. Because the agents are more likely to refer him somebody. Why? He's going to pay him on 25% referral for doing shit. And vice versa. Now, I say that, and nobody in this room will lay a piece of paper or show me on your screen that you've done that. And who you've contacted. If you're from up north, whatever city you're from, you probably still have people you know there. Find out from them who the top agents are that don't work for a franchise. Because the franchise system already has a 35% referral base in it. which means you'd have to add your 25% to it, don't fly. And there are plenty of non-franchise companies throughout the country, throughout the world. Understanding this marketplace, I asked where everybody came from. You'll notice the answer was from just about any place in the world. You kind of on the outside, sorta. And when you look at the demographics today, how many of you have South American contact?
Excuse me, I'm leaving, bye guys. Dale, clean people are coming tonight, so unlock the doors when you leave tonight,
Okay.
thanks. Bye
All
guys,
right,
I'll
I'll
see you
make sure,
tomorrow.
I'll make sure they're locked.
Huh?
I'll make sure they're locked.
Nothing will get clean. Good night,
I'll leave my
everybody.
door open. How many of you grew up on a farm? Got to ask that question. Either you did or you didn't. Okay. The only reason I ask that is, now I've got a whole bunch of routines I can use because it'll take you 2 years to figure out what I'm talking about. Especially if I'm slipping to the store. In front of you, you have two books. One says exam manual, and one says principles practice. Emma. That's the blue book. The Earns book can stay home. Or is that yellow? Yellow, okay. The yellow book, this book here. Stay home. That book will become more valuable a month or so down the road. I'll let you know when that is. Two things that you need to walk away from when this class is over. An understanding of the law, so you keep yourself out of trouble. And the second one, and the one that is most difficult, is learning to speak the language. The typical real estate agent stinks at it. I think because when they were getting the license, they were giving the impression that they didn't really need to be able to speak the language. You just need to remember it long enough to pass the test. Give me a transaction, and I'll show you FREC1 at least 10 times in a year. This is not a business where you guess. You either know or you find out. As a licensed professional, you're responsible for what comes out of your mouth. Thank God you're with a company that has the resources to help you answer just about any question you could possibly have. That's Sarah, which you probably heard about in the organization. I'm sure you heard. Anybody have any questions before we get into it? Yes, sir.
I just want to know, why does the state make you wait 30 days till you retest?
Because mom decided so.
Thank you.
Probably because they felt that you probably need the time to study. Fortunately, that's not going to be an issue, right?
I'm hoping not.
And not,
I'm hoping
that's
not.
what you're hoping, right?
Right.
Well, that's-
Say yes.
yes, that's why I'm here, because
No,
you're
no,
the
no, no.
best.
I don't need anything but yes or no.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You gotta make your mind up. Are you or aren't you? If you aren't, goodbye. I have no trouble getting you past the test. You just have to do what I tell you to do. And study. And participate in class, more important than anything else. Even if it's just, Guessing. Question, you're taking the test, you get a question, you don't even have a clue what they're talking about. And they give you 4 answers. What are you gonna do?
Take a 50-50 shot, because,
But I don't recognize the question or any of the answers. Doesn't even look like something we talked about in class.
When in doubt, choose C.
Is it multiple choice?
Yes,
Do you have to
Then you
answer
have
the
a,
question?
some
Yes.
sort of shot.
yes. You're gonna do what?
Yeah, I think
Take a stab.
There
Why?
you go.
Because if you leave it blank,
It's wrong.
it's automatically wrong.
Yeah.
So this is not the type of test where you get penalized for a wrong answer. This is not SATs. I did real well on those. Oh, not in college. Are we considered professionals?
yes.
Who are we regulated by?
FREC.
FREC.
Our real estate commission, but
And
I'm thinking of another name,
DBPR.
DBPR. Who's that?
Department
What's
of
that stand for?
Business.
You hear that all the time. What's that stand for?
Department of
You
Business.
know what the D stands for if it's a state agency? Department. The B,
Business.
business. The
Regulation.
P, professional,
Regulation.
regulation. There are approximately 33 businesses and professions regulated by the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. As a real estate licensee, do I need to have an understanding of how properties are transferred?
yes,
Yes.
Hopefully, I'm gonna have a lot of reason to have to know that. It's called closings. It's called rentals. Do I need to know how to market real estate?
yes.
Thank God, I don't have to. I've got 3 professional marketing people in the room behind me. They're one of my resources. See, I am an absolute genius. Because any question you can ask me, I can get the answer for it. If I can't, you ask me a stupid question. How important is it to be able to do that when you're working with the public? It's okay to say what? I'm not sure, let me.
Find out when.
But if I have no source to go to, or that source is only available on Tuesday from 3 to 5, I got a problem. I'm kind of out there on my own. This is not a place where you're out there on your own. On page 2. Now, I need to explain how things are going to work here as far as marking up the book. I have a study guide that I'm going to hand out in just a few minutes. The study guide touches on the key concepts in each chapter. They call them units, but in each chapter. What I will do is I will mark it in the book and I'll mark it on the study guide. What I'll mark will be the letter G for question. You don't know what the question will be. The second one is the page, meaning the material for that question is on page 50. On page 50, I will bracket the area that has the material necessary to answer that question. And then I'll highlight specifically what the answer is going to be. rendezvous. That sounds too easy. That's the whole idea. Now, the stars are only important until you pass the class exam. Then the whole book, plus that other book, become important. Hmm?
That's your job.
Class test is not based on the yellow book, it's based on the textbook. I need to study everything. But until I pass next class exam, that starred material is most important. But the way I've set up to do it this time, if I highlight something, that highlighted part will indicate the answer to a question. Now, you know that the questions on the test are confidential. So I cannot give you the question and the answers. I can, however, give you the material that you need to know to be able to answer that question. Can't get much easier than that. Now, two words that are not allowed here. Assume and think. I don't want you to think. I don't want you to read ahead. Because if you read ahead, you're going to interpret the material. And I'm going to have to spend time deprogramming you and reprogramming you. Because everybody's going to have a different perspective on the material. I know when I first started with this, I had an issue with everything. I must have called the state at least 3 times a week. Then I finally realized I wasn't going to change the world. Because Mom didn't give a shit. Here are the rules. A lot of the rules, I now know why. When I first started, all I knew was, that's the rule. So, like I said, a lot of the things I can give you a reason for why it is. Now, the problem with it is, sometimes when I tell you what the reason is, the reason won't make any sense. Which means you'll need that more confused. On page 2, starting with line 9, let's put a bracket from lines 9 through 33. Now, do me a favor. When you're doing the bracket, don't use your highlighter. That highlighter is for one purpose and one purpose only. And that's to identify your star. When you talk about having a real estate license, is that a very narrow term or a very broad term?
Very broad.
Broad.
And most of you don't understand real estate. Most of you understand, to what degree I'm not sure, is residential. What do you think the majority of the licensees are? In the non-residential world or in the residential world? What?
A lot of housing can
It's more of a spectrum that you can work with in residential versus commercial or otherwise.
It's because you have to know a whole lot more if you go into commercial. How many of you know how to do a cash flow analysis? How many don't have a clue what the hell that is? How many of you don't care? But it's a whole different world. So, because I had people say, you know what, I'm gonna do residential and I'm gonna do some commercial. Like, who if I'm a commercial agent? Now, some of you know people who own an apartment complex or a warehouse. Now, they want to sell that warehouse. You know shit about selling warehouses. We have a commercial division. They'll pay you 25% per phone call.
There you go.
So in that searching, you're doing anybody, any type of real estate. We've got people who do business brokerage, which is a very specialized area of real estate. But you're gonna run across opportunities in those areas. And quite honestly, you gotta be nuts to try to take them on. Much better off to do the referral, get the 25%, go home. That means even those of you who are unfortunately are not gonna be able to do this full time can still make money. I know people who have another business. They average anywhere between 25,000 to 35,000 a year in referrals. Because he talks real estate. And he's got 3 agents in different areas that he refers, you know, landlords, tenants, buyers, sellers to. What's he do? What's he do after that? Endorses the back of the check. So there's a lot of ways to make money in this business. That's why the first assignment was about finding the people. And there's no excuse for not doing it. You've decided that you want to make money and you've decided this is the place you want to come. Then you need to get your little button here, because I can teach you all this stuff. I can show you how to do contracts, Gail can work with you, show you how to do the technology. But if you don't have somebody to do it with, guess what? And I gave you an easy thing to do. Oh, by the way, drive-throughs, not allowed. You need to get your little butt out of the car, go stand in line, make sure you have your badge on or your shirt on, so the whole world knows you're in real estate. And you know darn well, there's never been a time when you stood in line for any length of time and somebody had a badge on, you didn't at least look at it. And 9 times out of 10, it turned into a conversation. Because I've had people say to me, you're in real estate, huh? No, I just wanted these shirts. I remember when I first started, somebody did that. It's like, what the hell did, what, got it across my forehead? And then I realized I had a badge on or I had a shirt on. How many of you would be comfortable wearing something like this? Or a badge? How many of you wouldn't be? Those of you wouldn't be, and you don't like to have emblems on things, I want you to go home tonight. I want you to go to your closet, and I want you to take every horse out of that closet and throw them away. Because that sucker is making money off of you. You are advertising for that fool every day. And then the t-shirts. Why the hell do you think they make t-shirts so readily available? Because that might look, I'm looking at this now, trying to figure out what the hell it says. Because I need for people to know I'm in business, whatever that may be. Your sphere of influence are not your buyers and sellers. Your sphere of influence are your lead generators. So those people you know in Turkey, they're not coming here. They wouldn't like it here. But they know people that live here all the time. I want to make sure they extend those people to me. Like I said, If you're not doing that, when you learn all this wonderful stuff, what are you gonna do with it? I want you to have business lined up and chomping at the bit to go once you pass this test. On page 3, it talks about real estate brokerage. The word brokerage, what's that word mean?
Buying and selling. The business of bringing together buyers and sellers.
That sounds
Owners,
good.
renters. Completing.
Facilitating transactions.
Give me a definition of brokering real estate. Or brokering anything.
Buy something for $1, sell it for $10.
It's,
Are you here to buy and sell real estate?
Absolutely.
Or are you here to broker real estate?
Both.
Bullshit. You're not here to learn how to invest.
No.
You should go to the seminars. If you want to learn how to be a broker, stock broker, yacht broker, real estate broker, you're dealing for others or compensation. So I have a question for you. My mother lives on the ocean. She's decided she wants to move to one of the country clubs because all the people on the ocean are semi-dead. And she needs a place where there's more activity at 85. Well, my mother never left Virginia, so I'm making this up as I go on. So she says, Dale, will you help me? I'm unlicensed. But I know a lot of people. And, matter of fact, one of my friends has been talking about looking at a condo on the beach. So I tell him about my mother's property. He says, sounds good. Long story short, and the attorney prepared the contract, title company did the closing. Have I done anything wrong?
No,
Why not?
you have not received any compensation for your actions.
How you know that?
Well, you didn't indicate that, so I made that assumption that we're not supposed to assume.
No, you answered the question based upon the information given. And based upon the information given, there was no indication of compensation. So that would be totally legal. Could she take me out to dinner for selling her condo?
Yeah.
no.
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 Yes. You're going to receive money. You can receive it.
You did? That doesn't say money.
Plead the fifth.
That says compensation.
You're getting something of value.
There you go. There's the answer. And somebody said anything of value. What about flowers?
Same thing.
Can't do that either?
Good.
Better than candy bar.
How about a thank you note?
Yeah.
The answer is yes to that. That's as far as you can go. That was good. That was good. Now, I want to look at pages 3 and 4 as one picture, and then we'll come back to it. It talks about real estate brokerage, which we just talked about. First category is sales and leasing. That's the one we said that we would find the majority of people in. But you'll also notice that the sales category is broken into different types of real estate. You've got residential, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and business broker. Is a business broker considered to be a real estate licensee?
No.
Yes.
Could it?
Is a business considered to be real estate?
Yes.
If real estate was part of the transaction, would it then, become significant? If you're selling a business, but there's no real estate in the transaction, it's different than if you're selling a business and the real estate is part of the transaction?
Sounds good. Our first bracket starts on line 6 and goes through line 14
On page 4?
on page 4, which is the paragraph regarding business brokerage. On page 4. We're gonna highlight, starting in the middle of line 11, where it says there is a presumption in Florida law that businesses will have some sort of real estate involved, either land with physical improvements such as a building or a long-term lease. For this reason, in Florida, an active current real estate license is required to sell or lease businesses. So our business is considered to be real estate. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
You sure?
Because the law presumes it.
Oh, this is one of these mom things,
Right.
because I said so. That is your first start. But remember what I said, anytime I tell you to highlight it, it should be highlighted in yellow, or highlight anything that I don't tell you to highlight. Because what you're highlighting is information that will get you 1 point. So by the time I get to the end, you'll have 100 points. So you forget 70 of them, so you forget 30 of them. That's a lot to forget. And you still pass. If you forget 30% of it, it's because you can't read, because you don't have to remember it, it's on the page. See, this is not a fill in the blank, this is not an essay, this is a multiple choice. If you're not sure which is the right answer, eliminate the ones you know that are wrong. Something magical happens, you eliminate 3. I've watched people do that and still sit there trying to figure out what to answer. Because I see them mark and go, and they're down to T, and A, B, and C have been marked off. And then there's that hesitation, figuring what? Should have missed off. How many of you are good readers? Okay, warning, you don't read. You skim. How many of you have your nose in Facebook most of the day? Lying dogs. I know better. You wanna know what? Again, you don't read. You scan. There's too much shit coming at you to read every word. And most of it's shit and you don't care anyhow. And you know what? They know how to word questions because they know how people misread questions. A must versus a should totally changes the answer to the question. Must means what? It has to be done, it's required. Should? We recommend it, it's a good idea, but it's not enough. And of course, they would give you both of the answers. So if you miss the must or the may, you didn't get a right answer, just the wrong one to that question. The next thing they talk about is target marketing. I think we just got through talking about that. Somewhere in Turkey, I think. You know, now you're my go-to guy.
Yeah.
Just so you understand something, if I appear to be staring at you, I'm not. I played sports, especially basketball. You had to be able to see the whole floor. If you're dribbling down and you have to pass it to somebody that's open. And I realized you had to kind of pick a spot. Pick that spot, and then it's amazing. I was a lot better at it when I was younger, and now it's not quite as an easy process. In the third paragraph, line 28, it talks about a farm area. And now in my mind, I think it's something different. But a farm area versus the target marketing. A farm area is when you focus on either a specific group of people or a specific community, or possibly an area. Now, a farm area is something that you spend a lot of time promoting. Here, it's much more difficult to do that. Because so many of the communities, either they're not gated, they don't allow solicitation. In today's world, we now have to deal with the do not call list, which there's a section on that in there too.
No one else is dealing with that do not call list.
I know. But if your luck is like mine, you're gonna be paying $16,000 for that phone call.
What?
This,
Yeah.
Somebody,
You violate the federal do not call list, per call is
yeah,
$16,000.
this is big,
you must have pissed somebody off for them to call.
you're not allowed to solicit.
No, I'm not.
At the bottom of the page, another term, I want to point out to you, on line 38, it's called follow-up. Is this what you do before or after the transaction? And how long do you follow up?
Internally.
How long do you continue to follow up? Till they're dead.
That's correct.
At that point, I don't know that I want to go where they are and continue to fight them. But the whole idea of this page of target marketing is about finding leads. So when I look at my sphere of influence, or whatever you want to call it, I'm looking for leads. He is in a business where he travels and he knows people all over the world. Damn, I want him on my list. You know what? Every time he's in town, we're going to lunch. Because all I need is one of his $5 million buyers to buy in a year, and it pays for a lot of lunches. But that's networking. Anybody that's in sales or in your own business, I'm not telling you anything new. I'm just making you aware of, same way, it works the same way. This is a business. And without customers, I have nothing. But without the ability to handle those customers, I have a mess. It's not that I don't have nothing, I have a mess. Fortunately, you're in a place where you get a lot of help with that mess. Oh, by the way, once you start, do us a favor, don't play one of these moves. Just heard it this week. This agent calls up and says, I'm taking a listing, I've done my paperwork, do you mind reviewing it for me? Of course not. No problem.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Well, send it over to, well, I've already sent it to the seller.
How am I doing that?
So, you've already sent it to the seller and you want me to review what? Review the fact that the seller's going to think you're a jerk because you left half of the first page off? Also, don't accuse Sarah. And don't contact Sarah with your personal email. Don't contact any of us with your personal email. Of course, after you get a company. I realize right now, if you're gonna communicate with us, you don't have a choice. Why? It's called hack. Our system is much, much, much more protected than your little world out there. Unless you spend some serious bucks in getting all that in.
Don't pull a Hillary.
Please should.
And don't ever send wiring instructions over a personal email. Because I guarantee you that money's gonna disappear. I am an investor. However, I also have my own business. I own 6 investment properties. I obviously do not have the time to properly manage them. So, what would I do? How to manage them. And they're probably called property managers. On page 5, let's put a bracket on page 5 from where it says property manager in line 1. Put a bracket to the bottom of the page. As a property manager or as a rental agent, do I necessarily need a real estate license?
Yes.
Answer was not on the next page. Because if I'm working on a salary basis for the owner, I don't have to have a license. However, if I'm managing an association, a condo or homeowners association, there are specific regulations in order to be compensated for doing that type of property management. You'll see what it talks about at the bottom of page 5. What most importantly is on the next page, the CAM license. So if you live in a community where there's a property manager, the property manager is gonna have a CAM license. They may also have a designation. Now, the type of question that would come from there, not a star for this test, would be, basically the sentence that starts with the middle of line 4. There's two numbers you would have to watch for. If there's more than how many,
10 units.
or they have a budget.
Oh, 100,000.
Now, do they have to have both?
No,
No.
4.
Unit.
One or the other.
Because it says or,
Mhm.
which means
Either one.
either one. Now, the next area is appraising. What is an appraisal?
An opinion of value.
Could we say it's a statement of value? The answer is no. A statement's an absolute. It is an estimate, or it's an opinion. As you'll see in a little while, as a real estate licensee, I can do appraisals. However, I cannot do what they call certified appraisal unless I have a license as a certified appraiser, which in today's world in Florida is a separate licensing board.
Yeah.
Let's highlight on page 6, 26 through 30. That's part of the story. The other part is the chart at the top of page 7, where it says types of valuation product. Let's put a bracket around that. And then we're gonna highlight that line that says appraisal assignment to originate a federally related loan requires you to have a license. Which is why you won't find too many real estate agents doing appraisals when a loan's involved. So if I'm asked, as a real estate agent, can I do an appraisal? The answer is yes. I said, if I'm a real estate licensee, can I do an appraisal?
Yes.
Yes. Can I do a certified appraisal?
No.
And what's the likelihood of the bank accepting an appraisal that's not certified?
Unlike zero.
There is a format, a form that has to be used by an appraiser when they do an appraisal. If, as a real estate licensee, you were going to do an appraisal, you would have to use the same documentation.
Yeah.
This is not a place where you're going to learn about that, other than what you just learned. Because in real life, how often are we going to do an appraisal? Rarely. However, we're going to do a lot of market analysis. We're going to do broker opinions. So let's take a look at what the difference between a appraisal, because any one of the three, an appraisal, comparative market analysis or a broker's price opinion, you're giving your opinion, or you're giving an estimate of what you feel based upon the data provided property is worth. Now, as real estate agents, we do a lot of market analysis. So let's put a bracket on page 7 from 6 through 20. Now, again, remember the chart at the top of the page, specifically the first line is a star. I don't know why I said to use the first line. Never mind. When you do a market analysis for a seller, because you're taking their listing, what's the purpose of that market analysis?
Real estate trends for the area.
Comparable price of like and kind.
I want to know why. What do I use the market analysis for?
See, we could price, see, we could price the house out, so we get sold.
Listing price.
Raise it,
Are you
so you can
conveying,
get their money from the bank.
Now, you sound like a seller. Now, listen to an agent. A market analysis is a tool that I use to help the seller properly price his property so that we can get him the highest and best in the shortest period of time with the least amount of inconvenience. That's a real estate agent talking. You sounded like a buyer or seller. You're still outside. Wednesday night, either you're in here or you're out there. Because the last few classes, maybe didn't realize it soon enough, they were still out there. So I'm not going to give you a chance to get out there. Get in here and be an agent and answer like one. And that's not going to be easy, because unless you've been an agent, and even if you've been an agent, it's even more difficult. Because the rules are different here. What I found is worse is when the rules are that much different. When it's black and white, it's very easy to tell the difference. But when there's that much difference between it. I remember in the past, when I had agents from Michigan, they seemed to have the hardest time in the world of separating one from the other. And I got to, when I see that happening, obviously I started talking to them, trying to figure out what the issue is, what the problem is. They said our laws are so similar. Now, this is 20 or 25 years ago, so it may not be the case now. It's very hard to keep them straight. If you've been licensed somewhere else, and we got 2 or 3 or 4 people who have, you have to have column A and column B. You can't tell me you're going to forget what you've taken 25 years or 10 years or 15 years to learn. They didn't just magically disappear. So you're really going to have to play column A and column B. By doing that, in your mind, you can visually see, okay, this is Florida and this is whatever. What information? There's 3 pieces of information that I need to do a typical market analysis. What are they?
Comps.
Recently sold,
The location.
Size of the
Area.
how long it,
currently for sale,
average number of days on the market?
and expired.
What was that?
Expired. Last Storm
This has a thing, eraser?
Wait, you know, they also.
Wait, under the papers.
No, I'm looking more for this. As agents, we don't refer to it as currently for sale. What do we call it? Active listings. Which are properties that are currently for sale. But if I'm talking to the seller, it's easier for them to understand currently for sale than active. I mean, think of the two terms, which one would more people understand? That was pretty easy. And we have a name for them also. Expires. The reason I did that, probably been 20 years now, there was an agent in Boca that was the #1 listing agent in Boca Raton. And even then, that was saying something. As a part of her presentation, she would talk about pricing. No numbers, just the mentality that she wanted her seller to take in looking at the numbers. And she actually did this upside down. So she was up here, saying it on the table, and she turned it so they could see it. That took a little practice too. And then here's what she said. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, wouldn't you agree that if you were trying to sell any kind of product, that you'd need to know what your competition was charging? Wouldn't that be important? Now, anybody that's being reasonable would have to agree with that statement. Those are the ones that are currently for sale. Those are the ones you're going to be competing with. So we have to take them into consideration because they're going to affect your ability to get maximum value. Recently sold, that's exactly what it sounds like. She said I would use the word reality. That currently for sale was fantasy, and sold was reality, and did not sell. She said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if I decide to take your listing tonight, that's where your listing will go. When we're through, you're either going to be on this list, or you're going to be on that list. And she said she used to stop and say, which list do you want to be on? She said if it took them more than 10 seconds to answer the sold list, she says, I'm out of there. And you realize if they're being realistic and they're being reasonable, they can't really disagree with that. And she would say, please keep that in mind when we take a look at the market analysis. So she tried to do what? Mentally prepare them for looking at that data, which I thought was kind of silly. Now, bottom of the page is the broker's price opinion. You have a lot of lenders who have properties that they want to put up for sale. But they need to have some idea of what it should sell for so they can price it. Understand the bank's not looking to give it away. Those days are gone. But they also know too that if they overprice them too much, they're not gonna sell. The broker price opinion is the information gathered by an agent that will help that lender to properly price the property. When you use the word broker here, the word broker to licensee could be substituted for broker. It wouldn't have to be a broker, it could be a sales associate. Questions on any of those? Now, the appraisal, I didn't spend a lot of time with because we have a whole chapter on it. So I think one chapter is enough. Now, why do I have to learn so much about appraisal?
Because it's important.
Why?
All the different, it depends on how much your house that you're actually gonna get the loan for. I had 2 appraisals done on my house, so I understand.
It's gonna affect my ability to get my home sold. Forget financing. In today's world, a lot of people who are paying cash are including an appraisal contingency in the offer. You know what? They have no problem paying market value, but they're not paying 10% over market value. Whereas others say, I don't get anything, I'm going in and gut the place anyhow. So it's, you know, it's relevant to the situation. Okay, page 8. You've got a section on page 8 talking about financing. And I have nothing more to say about that because we've got 2 chapters on financing, so I think 2's enough. And consulting? Probably not one of the services that you will initially offer the public once you get your license. However, we do have agents who get paid for analyzing properties for investors. The next section talks about development and construction. Of course, we don't have any of that here. You know, there's a small company building a few units over on Mines Road. If I'm gonna build a community like the Bridges, it's the first thing I need to do.
Check your zoning.
Get the land.
Get the land. And of course, I have my due diligence period where I can check out the zoning or any other issues or problems to determine, you know, am I going to spend money? Is it gonna be feasible to even be able to build on it? All right, so the first thing is land acquisition. What do you do next?
Then you can subdivide the development.
Now we can start subdividing. And in a typical residential community, and you'll notice they talk about it on the top of 9, subdividing and development. Which one would they probably do first?
Subdivide.
Right. So once they can figure out where the lots are, now they can start building a pad up. Just don't let them use contaminated dirt like they did on my house. My 3 palm trees grew what looked like mushrooms. And basically, whatever it was, just melted my tree. So no more palm trees in front of my house. That was another battle with our friendly homeowners association. Now, in residential, you always hear about plotted subdivisions. Just about any community, or my community is a plotted subdivision. Does that have to be recorded?
Yeah.
Because That now puts it on the tax rolls. Now, after doing all of that, what's the last thing I do?
Market.
Construction.
Construction. Wrong. That's the next to the last thing I do. Or maybe, depends. There's another event that might happen before, may happen after. What's that?
You need an engineer.
Selling it. Could be sold before it's built, could be a spec that's being bought, which is happening in the bridges.
And you need to design it first.
Yeah, well, that's all part of that subdividing and development. In other words, there's a lot that goes into, I mean, if you watched Geo Homes, how long did it take them just push dirt around?
Years.
Because all that dirt had to be straightened out. That's like millions and millions and millions of dollars of equipment in there. At the bottom of page 9, starting with line 28, let's go bracket to line 3 on the next page. If I said I was doing speculative building, which one of the 3 would it be? I'm doing speculative building. Which one of the 3 would it be?
Track move. Track move.
1, 2, or 3?
One.
Oh,
One.
How many of you say 1? How many of you say 2? How many of you say 3? Okay. We have a little rule in this class. What's the rule? Everybody answers the question. Well, I got 5 people who didn't answer the question. So we have 1 of 2 options. I can skip it, or I can go back and do it again. Since I don't feel like skipping it, I'm gonna do it again. I expect an answer. Because you're not gonna fail because you left it blank. You're gonna fail because you gave it your best shot and got it wrong. If I am doing speculative building, which one of the 3 am I describing? How many of you say 1?
One.
How many of you say 2? How many of you say 3? 3 is the right answer. I didn't say spec houses, I said spec building. So the key word was not speculative. The key word was houses or building. You guys are screwing around with my fancy numbers. Spec houses or speculative houses is when somebody buys 1 or 2 or 3 lots and builds it one at a time, hopefully getting someone to purchase it before it's complete. The speculative building or tract building is geo homes and bridges. Custom homes, I buy a lot on the intercoastal. I bring in my architect, I bring in my interior decorator, I bring in my landscaping people, and I build it to my specs. Whereas if I go out to GL Homes, I've got X number of models, X number of lots. Pick one. We'll add stuff to it, no problem. No problem. You want tile instead of carpet? Yeah, another $30,000, not a problem. And then you decide 6 months after you moved in that you like carpet better. Or then, you know what, they've got the waterproof laminate now. So we'll put that over the tile we spend next to the $30,000. So we do a good job of keeping all the industries like that in business. Does the government have any impact upon what happens in real estate?
Yes.
Which level, local, state, or federal?
All.
All of them. That's on the next page. When you pass the state exam, you have qualified to have a license. At that point, can you refer to yourself as a realtor?
Yes. Oh, no, not unless you are associated with the local board of realtors.
And the state and the national. The term realtor is specifically for people who are a member of the National Association of Realtors, which also exists on the state level and on the local level. You hear them talk about NAR and then FAR. How important is it to be a part of this organization? If you're in residential, it's critical because of what it offers. MLS in a lot of ways is not the best feature. It's all the other things that they offer, the education,
The conventions.
convention, yes. We're almost big enough to have our own too, so, one of these days. Before I forget. Just in case you forgot when you're supposed to be here. Right, got one? That's right. These 2 months are easy to remember. Because they're the exact thing. Now, I have another item, which I debated on when to give it. Thought about it. Yeah. Great. what you've got in your hands here are the key points in every chapter. Some of those key points are stars. So if everybody's got the study guide, let's go to the first page. Let's go to Unit 1, which is real estate business. And what you really need is just the page number, because you'll see the star when you get there. The first one has a star. It's page 4. So on your study guide, put page 4. Because as you can see, once you get to page 4, you know it's there. You don't have to hide. Putting the question number was stupid. One thing I want you to understand, the fact that I put a star beside it doesn't mean it's the most important piece of information on the page. It's the most important piece of information on the page when you're taking the class test. But you'll see there are times when I spend very little time on what we highlighted, starred, and a whole lot more time on something we didn't. I'm not teaching you to pass the class exam. I'm handing you the class exam on a silver platter. I'm preparing you for the state exam. So basically, this is a crown. It's just 9 weeks long. You will be more than ready to take both of those tests if, first and foremost, you participate in class and do your homework. The questions at the end of each chapter are automatically your responsibility to do when we finish that chapter. I will not review them unless I'm asked to. The answers to each one of them is in the back of the book. If you don't understand the answer, here's when your opportunity will be to ask about it. Every night, I spend the first maybe 10 minutes asking, does anybody have a question? That could be something about the material in the chapters, or that could be about one of the questions. Well, incentive to get your family here on time. So in each chapter, once we finish the chapter, we will identify which one of the bullets in each chapter is specific to the class exam. So you know that 2 of the questions on the class exam come from Unit 1. And that was basically the first 2 statements. Explain why the sale or lease of business requires a real estate license. Okay? Questions on that, anybody? Okay, well, we take about a 10-minute break. I'll come back and look at chapter 2. Again, the best order is through that door, so as far as you can go, make a right, and then make a right or a left, depending on who you want. She got a star on page 4. And one on 7. Yeah. What I highlight is the star. But a lot of times, the star is in one sentence, but you have to, you can't just read that one sentence. It is not significant of anything. The only thing that has any significance is something that's a star. There's a highlight, because that's a star. Everything else is important. Sometimes I'll bracket it because I think I need to. Other times I won't because I don't feel it's necessary. Yeah, most important is make sure you get the stars.
Excuse me. I only have 3 highlights. And we have 4 things that I need to see. Yeah.
There's only 2 stars, page 4 and page 7.
Okay, yeah, you said highlighted, so page 7 we highlighted the appraisal, but on page 6 we highlighted that.
But I said that was part.
Yeah. So that's,
So-
yeah.
On page 4.
Because we did page 4.
Right. And then we did, I said this is part of that. That first sentence
Oh,
is
so
a
that's,
star.
that counts as 1
Yeah. Because I needed to set that up
for that.
for that.
Okay.
Right, and then left.
I'm looking at the resolution. Yeah.
Yes.
If I refer my mother, to see if I can buy a house, do a real estate, anything, will get anything?
You have a license?
No. But I got it. But I got it.
No.
But I got something,
You got something?
yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you is fine.
No, not thank you.
Well, thank you.
Tiffany something.
Different type of thank you.
Uh-huh. So,
Well, it's kind of like, how many times did you speed today?
okay,
I mean, versus how many times you got caught.
okay, all right.
What I'm concerned about is monkey see, monkey do. But everybody else does it. I've had people tell me that. I feel like mom. So if your friends jumped off the roof, you would jump off too. All right, chapter 2, unit 2. Don't turn to page 17. Now, yeah, 17. I think what we're gonna do, and I'm experimenting a little bit with these study guides. I think that we'll mark up the study guide once we've got through an individual unit. So it'll be a good way too to review back with the things that are the stars. But again, you'll notice that on these study guides, you've got information that doesn't have a number beside it. In other words, what we are going to answer for questions on the test doesn't necessarily mean that that question will be on the state exam. So again, understand that the stars specifically relate directly to the class exam. But there are concepts in each chapter that are also important. So the fact that it doesn't have a page number beside it doesn't mean it isn't important. It just means it's not on the class test. Now, I think it'd be easier if we double back after the chapter's over and catch the study guide as to which ones we need to put a page number. Let's see, you'll have a page number in the book. And that page number will match up to one of the bullets in whichever chapter we're in the guide. That's why I said we'll do the chapter first, then we'll come back and put the page numbers beside the ones that had stars. Because if all you have is the page number, when you go to that page, you'll see what the star was. Because you shouldn't be highlighting anything other than something I say is a star. You wanna bracket it, whatever, and sometimes I give brackets. A lot of times I put those there because I feel like what I highlighted, you can't just look at what I highlighted. You have to look at the rest of what's there, so the highlighted stuff makes more sense. But you know that the highlighted is gonna be the answer. In case you haven't figured that out yet. Yes,
So here in the packet, you said you put page 4,
right.
which is the highlighted, but we need highlighted.
Page
six
7.
and 6 and 7.
The second thing is 7. So on the FREC1, the first 2 are pages 4 and 7. Where it says explain why the sale or lease of business requires a license, that's page 4. Recognize which valuation product requires services of a licensed or certified appraiser is page 7. So all you have to do is put the page number, you don't have to put anything else. Because when you go to the page, whether there's 1 star there or 3 stars there, you'll know it because you'll see them. But just trying to make an easy way for you to match up the study guide. All right. This next chapter talks about licensing. As I said, please don't turn the page. Now, what I suggest right now is put your pens and pencils and highlighters down and watch. Don't have a stroke on me, and don't do bad things behind my back. Like picking up your pen or piece of paper and starting to draw. I promise I won't erase it until you have a chance. Not the fact. You have a camera, take a picture of the damn thing. Well, I thought putting big charts up there, the best thing to do is just take a picture of it. If I'm in the picture, it costs you money. Now, when it comes to licensing, there's actually 2 types of licenses. You're either a sales associate or you're a broker. But there's 2 types of brokers. So technically there's 3. Now, as a broker has the ability to operate on their own. They don't have to be supervised. So when I think about broker, a broker can either be active, which means they have an office, and we'll go into that in more detail later, or they are inactive, or they are a broker associate. A sales associate doesn't have any options. You're either active or you're, that's pretty much right, inactive. You should never put your license in as a sales associate in an inactive status.
Yeah,
Never.
never.
Even if you're gonna do nothing, and you're gonna go into one of our referral companies, where all you can do is refer, that's better than being inactive. Because if you're inactive, guess what you're gonna make? Zero. If you're active with a referral company, you can make a lot of money doing absolutely nothing. I would suggest you be active and make a whole lot of money, but that's just me. What's your first assignment?
Start building your pipeline.
Forward.
You already have a pipeline. You just need to increase it. How many of you have one of these damn things? There's your sphere of influence right there. Let me ask you a question. If I dialed one of the numbers on here, would they know you were taking real estate class?
Yeah.
Every person on here,
No.
randomly, if I picked anybody in the way you don't know.
No, not everybody.
Well, the ones that don't know are the ones that have the referrals. Ben used to play Russian roulette. He'd make everybody put their phones up front. And he'd take one of the phones and randomly dial. And ask them, do you know what John does? How would you feel about that if I took one of your phones and did that? Other than wanting to kill me. You know what? If that makes you nervous, better do something about it. You should have no fear of me picking up your phone and calling anybody on that phone. Well, what about my doctor? You make friends with the nurses? Unless you're on drugs, because you're there all the time, especially if kids. Every 5 minutes, somebody's got something else. Don't laugh. I watch business go on in emergency room. Because you know what, you're sitting there for a very long period of time. Now, the question is, I have a sales associate license. Give me one word that would describe an active sales associate.
Ready?
Working.
Personable.
Networking. Employee.
Personable.
When you get your license, can you do business?
Yes.
Absolutely not. Your license is inactive when you walk out of that testing.
You need to be hired, right?
That's why this next call is to me. The next call is to me, and the next call is out to him. To do what?
Associate.
Get your butt in here and get signed up, so that you can get busy. Understand the word active means you have an employer. That employer could be a broker or could be an owner developer. So I pass the state exam, I call up, I make an appointment with Ben, come in, Ben talks to me a little bit, and then sends me back to Damien, who is our HR guy, who will now help you fill out all the paperwork. Now, you've signed all your paperwork, you're now part of the company. Are you active?
Yes.
How many ever say you're active? How many ever say you're not active? Which way you going? Unacceptable answer. That is not an acceptable answer. I want a yes or a no.
No.
Yes? Answer is no, because mom does not know that you have an employer yet. And until mom knows, you can't do anything. So the last thing that happens is Damien goes online and with your license number and put you into whichever one of the companies you're gonna put your license with. Now, FREC knows you have an employer. Now, you're active. If you change addresses, you have to notify FREC.
Yes.
Yes.
Change employers.
Yes.
Quit.
Yes.
Do I have to be active to earn compensation?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
No. No.
Yes.
I'll give you a little hint. A sales associate can't go to the bathroom on their own, much less earn compensation.
Yeah.
Every dime you earn doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the brokerage. It doesn't even belong to Ben, it belongs to the brokerage. So I have a question. You walk out of closing, and the buyer hands you an envelope to say thank you for the hard work that you did in helping them find a new home. They really appreciate it. And they give you $5 $100 bills. Can I accept that?
No.
Absolutely. And what do I do with it? I give it to my broker.
You can't, but you gotta.
You gotta give it to the brokerage.
You can't give it to somebody else. It ain't yours.
Right. Ain't yours. Listing agreement. The seller wants to terminate the listing agreement. As the sales associate who signs the listing agreement on behalf of the company, do you have the right
No,
to meet the request of the seller, assuming that the listing allows them to terminate?
No.
Why not?
Because you're not a company, you're not,
Because it's not your listing. Therefore, you have no authority to do anything with it, other than what the company has told you initially, or with our special circumstance forms, allows you to make alterations. As a broker, I have two options. I can be an active broker, which requires me to have an office. And in chapter 5 or unit 5, we'll talk about what the requirements are for a law, for an office. You're gonna be shocked. Or the broker can choose to work or be employed by a broker or an owner developer. When they do such, they become broker associates. So when you see someone is a broker associate, you know two things. They are a licensed broker, but they're employed to another broker or an owner developer. From that point on, they are the same as a sales associate. The only advantage is that they could switch that license in a matter of days and have their own office. Whereas a sales associate, you still have to go through the licensing process to be able to do that. So, question. You got two sales associates. One who has averaged 2 closings a month for the last year, and another who hasn't done anything. We don't even know if they're still alive. Which one's active?
Both, because they're employed.
Both of them.
So the amount of money is irrelevant to the discussion. So whether you're making $100,000 a year, or $200,000 a year, or $50,000 a year, you have to be employed to earn that money. So therefore, I'm as active as a person that did absolutely nothing. Production doesn't dictate the word active. Employment dictates the word active, or inactive if you're not employed. You'll see that a lot of the stuff here has nothing to do with the money. The money is really an afterthought. Not that it is important, but it's important because if I'm not in the proper status, I may not be entitled to commission. Go back to your question, not question, your statement. Let's assume that that person said to you, I can't give you anything now, but when you get the license, I'll give you $1,000.
That's illegal.
Is that legal or illegal?
It's illegal.
Legal because you haven't taken anything, right? Until you get your license?
No,
Take it to your work then?
I would say it's illegal.
No, it's
Why?
illegal. It's
I
illegal.
think it's illegal because you're getting paid compensation for taking kind of part in a transaction where you weren't licensed at the time to do it.
You have to be active to earn the commission. You don't have to be active to collect it. You're working with us. You've got 2 pending closings, and you have a family emergency, and you place your license inactive. But you understand that the commission is not earned at closing. The commission is earned when you have a fully executed contract. Therefore, in that scenario, the sales associate was active when they earned it. Therefore, they do not have to be active to collect it. So it all depends on, where you're at in the process. Now, in her case, promising to give it to you, so I remember when I used to teach for school while I was for the company, I'd have people in class being told by brokers who they were trying to get to go work on it. Anything you refer to us, when you get your license, I'll give you a commission. And then, unfortunately for that student, his memory came back and said, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot all about it. I can't pay you unless you were active when we put the deal together. Well, he didn't already know that. It's amazing how your memory comes back when it's to your advantage, isn't it? Sticks and stones won't break my bones, but words can cost me my license. Or 769 or 70 on the test. Have to know, it's not just the words, it's the meaning of them. Because if I ask you, what does if I said the associate was active, I guarantee you more than half of you would say, well, that means they're working. You understand now that I don't have to be working to be active. I just have to be employed. So I can't earn compensation until I'm employed. And understand the fact that when you come in and sign all the papers, that doesn't make you active. Until you register with the state, which is done online in about 30 seconds, you're not entitled to compensation. Even though the compensation may have been paid down the road, after you got the license. Questions on that? This is on page 18.
I have a question.
Shoot.
What's the what is the reason for being inactive? What,
Stupidity. Whatever reason, somebody, they're going to live in the mountains, and they don't want to do anything, so from a business standpoint, and that's where you're coming from, because that's where your head is, it doesn't make sense to place a license inactive. As long as I can find a place where a broker will accept me, I don't have to join the board, I don't pay all kinds of fees.
you don't get paid, right?
In this business, you get paid when you earn it.
Right. But that, you'd only get paid if you're active.
No, well, yeah, no, you have to be active to earn it.
Right.
If you've already earned it, and then you become inactive before it's paid.
Right.
But yeah, you couldn't own it. That's why you never put the license in active. You put it with a referral company. A referral company basically is a company that doesn't have, require you to be a member of the MLS and the rules. Good question, Jim.
So you're still employed, but your license is inactive.
No, if you're employed, your license is active. Whether you're doing anything or not is irrelevant.
Okay, so you're inactive, you're still licensed, but you're not working. So you're not associated with any office.
Right.
So as far as FREC's concerned, you're licensed, but you're inactive and you're not working with any office.
No, forget the working part. I don't have to be working to be active.
No,
I just have to have a registered employee. Broker or developer. I got one of you first to come back, yes.
Do you need to be a resident of Florida?
No. Don't even have to be a US citizen. Yes.
I might be confusing something, but you mentioned before that you're not, like, prospective seller or buyer gives you $500. You said you couldn't take it.
No, I didn't say you couldn't take it. I said you had to
earlier,
give it
yeah.
to the broker.
Yeah, you have to give it to the broker, but I thought you had said earlier, way before, you said you cannot take it either way. I understand active and inactive,
Well,
but,
it would be the same difference as going to closing and getting the check made out to the company. And you're gonna bring it back to the office.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I want to separate the two. The commission you get through your brokerage or whatever, I understand that, but any monies, you're not allowed to, let's say somebody gives, oh, you did a great job.
Everything goes to the broker,
Goes to the broker.
everything.
The candy bar.
Okay. The candy bar, okay.
The distinction was, I think, originally, the person in the transaction was not licensed at the time, but the broker was licensed at the time, so therefore they could take it and give it to the broker who was a licensed party.
No, well, the broker is technically violating the law because he shouldn't be allowing somebody with an inactive license to be doing anything. That's why in all our files, you will verify that all the agents and all the companies in that transaction have a current active license. It's more important that we make sure our side is clean. But we shouldn't be paying the other side if they're not. I have a tendency to overcompensate for stuff like that. Because I'd like to make sure you keep your license. A lot of people, had agents bitching and complaining if they had to do that. Wait till, one time they don't check and this person's not licensed, not active. We've had several of them where the agent's license was expired. So, just a thought. Okay, on page 18, let's go bracket from lines 4 through 30.
Page 18. Page 18.
Page 18. What you're putting the bracket around is what's on the board. Just a little more detail. All right, this section goes into application requirements. Let's start with a bracket around lines 15 through 20,
What page?
19,
Thank you.
15 through 20. Bracket. I'm sorry, it should have been through 25. That's when my finger covered up the 5 minute one. So the bracket should have gone from 15 to 25. The next bracket should go from 26 to 38. And then the last bracket is the last paragraph, lines 39 through 44. Now, do you realize there are special classifications here? You got low income, and then you've got the two sections talking about the military personnel. There's no star here. The first one, which is low income, you'll notice it says initial license fee, not renewals. But I guess it's the idea of giving someone a chance to get the license by lowering the cost. The second paragraph, they have to meet the same requirements you do as far as the license is concerned. So the waiver has nothing to do with whether they have to take the course and pass the test. It has to do with the money. There really isn't that much money. How many of you have actually applied?
For license?
Yeah. Okay, just check. Because you were threatened with your life.
You can have a seat.
The second one says fee waiver for military personnel and their spouses. It says that the department is required by law to waive initial licensing for members of the U.S. Armed Forces that have served on active duty. The fee waiver also applies to the spouse who is married at the active duty member during the period of the active duty, and to a surviving spouse of a member of the U.S. Armed Service who, at the death, was serving on active duty. The fee waiver for the military personnel and spouses applies to all types of professional fees issued by DB. So I want to become a barber. I want to go into real estate. Would I get my license from the Department of Business and Professional Regulation if I want to be a barber? Well, you guys, next time you go into the barber shop to get your hair cut, look what's sitting up there in the mirror. Ladies, you see the same thing when you went into the salon. But basically what you're getting here is you're getting a waiver on the initial issuance of license. Doesn't cover the cost of the exam.
That's gonna be on the test.
We might be able to test, just not a class test. At the bottom of the page talks about a fee waiver for military veterans and their spouses. Since the DPPR is required to waive the application initial and unlicensed activity fee for military veterans and their spouses to apply for the license within 60 days after. So this is talking about somebody who is now no longer on active duty. Whereas the one before, they were on active duty when they earned that. And if you want to try to keep it straight, there's a nice little chart on the next page. Fingerprints. I'm gonna make a call tomorrow to my fingerprint person. I will get her here next Wednesday. Should be enough time to get her. They do accept just about any form of payment. However, if you use a check, they will not process your fingerprints until your check clears. So I would recommend, pretty sure it's probably gonna be $62, but I would recommend that you not use a check. Because it goes right out. You'll be surprised. In a few days, you'll get a notice back. See, if you've done the application, the only thing missing from being approved is your fingerprints. So when that letter comes back that your fingerprints are cleared and you've been approved, that's when you get a hold of Pearson View, was the testing company. Of course, with today's technology, it doesn't take them long to run you down. The gray box where it says background check of criminal history, bracket around that gray box. And we're gonna highlight the last two lines where it talks about Nola Contendra. And quite honestly, this is a vocabulary test. You're basically gonna be given 4 definitions of dolo contender, and you gotta pick the right one. I would think that the wording you see here might show up somewhere else. Now, application process and stuff, obviously you're familiar with, you've already done it. Has everybody set up an account with the department? With a username, password? It's important to remember this, you wanna maintain that, because they now put all your records in there, anytime you do continuing ed or post licensing, all that information is stored in there. So you have, we never had that in the past, you have access to all the information about your file. So that's very important. Don't have a whole lot to say about the page 21, just information about background check and stuff. Okay, we need to back up, because I skipped two very important pages. Okay, these next 2 pages talk about the different statutes that have an impact upon the real estate industry. On line 22,
What page?
I'm sorry, 16. Let me help you with that.
Not too soon.
That mind reader. On line 22, it talks about Florida Statute 20. Doesn't have much meaning to us. It's the statute that creates the structure of the department and the division and FREC. Probably the most important section is starting on line 28. Let's go bracket from 28 to the bottom of the page, which includes the 3 lines on the top of 17. Just as Chapter 475, which is called the real estate licensing law, is actually broken into 4 parts. The first break occurred when in the 80s, the federal government stepped in and said, all states must now license their appraisers separately. Now, within the Florida statutes, if you're gonna create a new law, you have to justify it. In other words, that this law is necessary to protect the public. And there's not a lesser means to regulate them. Now, initially, you had to have a real estate license to have an appraiser's license. Because you will see when we talk about the services of real estate, appraising is one of those services of real estate. So, now Florida has a dilemma. Federal government has mandated that they have to be regulated by a separate law. They have to have their own licensing board, which is the Florida Real Estate Appraisal Board. Shocking. So what they did is they broke FREC into two parts. Part one is us. Part two are the appraisers. That's why when I go to the instructor seminars to renew my instructor's license, the appraisal instructors are also there. Because the Florida Real Estate Commission and the Florida Real Estate Appraisal Board meet together. But the regulatory agency, or statute, I should say, is Part 1 of 475 is real estate, pure real estate. All of us, real estate schools. And then Part 3 and 4 deal with a specific issue. By law in Florida, if my seller of a residential property will agree to it in writing, I'm allowed to place a lien on the property for my commission. However, if you look at Part 3 at the bottom of the page and Part 4 at the top of the next page, you will see that in non-residential or commercial, that's not the case. The two scenarios is one deals with selling, and the other deals with leasing. So as a broker, I'm putting together a commercial transaction. The seller has refused to pay the full commission agreed to in the transaction. That's not uncommon in commercial that you get to closing, all of a sudden, they decide you're making too much money. So now what do I do? The law says I can't put a lien on the property. So what happened was they created another segment of 475 that says that the broker has the right to place a lien on the net proceeds of the sale, but they cannot encumber the property. 4, if 3 deals with sales, what do you think 4 deals with? Leases. So, as the broker, I put together a lease, tenant or tenants move in, I'm entitled to my commission. They refuse to pay me. I can't touch the property, but I can go after the rent. And what would happen is, if you want, the judge would instruct the tenants to pay the broker until the broker's compensation had been paid. And then they would go back to paying the landlord. Because you can't, in a commercial situation or a non-residential situation, there's no circumstance where you can actually put a lien on the property. You can in residential as long as you have the written permission of the owner. Yes?
Right, so you're closing a commercial transaction. The seller refuses to pay the full commission. You can put a lien on the net proceeds.
Right.
How long does that take? Because the guy's gonna cut a check, whether you like it or not, and go. So isn't it a lengthy process in which?
Yeah, well, let's see, the party cut was $500,000. Does it become worth fighting about?
I'm sorry?
The amount he cut out amounted to $50,000.
Right.
I think I'd be a little more inclined to want to go after it.
No,
If the party cut out was $1,500,
Right.
doesn't make sense
Right.
monetarily.
Right, well, another question, then you go back. Isn't each negotiation, isn't each commission negotiable?
Yes,
Okay. So, but that has to be duly stated prior to,
Mhm. sue me.
okay. All right, well, that's what I'm saying. So you're saying if
I've got
can't-
more attorneys than you can shake a stick.
No, I understand it.
I'll keep you in court until you run out of money.
What I'm trying to get at, you're saying you could put a lien on the net proceeds, but it takes a while. Meanwhile, that you're cutting it.
No, it doesn't take a while to put the lien on the proceeds. It takes a while to collect them. It's very easy to put a lien on there because the law allows it.
Right, but meanwhile, he's at the closing, got his check and he left. So how are you putting a lien on the net proceeds?
I put the,
In other words, it must be a lien on it prior to closing, and
No.
then you release the lien.
my attorney would notify the closing agent that we weren't being paid. And the closing agent, with the attorney for the broker, will get notice to the closing agent that they're putting a lien on the commission.
Ah, okay, that makes sense now.
Dale,
No question.
Yes.
can you, break down 3 and 4 again in your summary? So part 3, basically, you can encumber the profits for your commission, but you cannot encumber the property.
Right,
And number 4 is
rent
rent. And
from a lease.
gives you the ability to put rents on the lease.
Right. Because what the courts would do is, the courts would tell the tenants, for the next 3 months, send $500 each one of you to the broker. In 3 months, that would equal the amount of commission the broker had been due.
I just wanted to.
Now the money now flows back to the landlord.
Okay. You had just broken down 1, 2, 3, and 4 tonight, so I wanted you to repeat that for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
So, this may be irrelevant, but is a real estate attorney only for commercial properties in Florida?
No.
No.
Because when I closed on my house, I didn't have an attorney.
Yeah, you did. Because if you used a title company, I guarantee you, at least
Okay,
one
no.
person in there was an attorney.
Okay.
See, it's different down here. Up north.
Yeah, Illinois, I had to
uh,
have my own.
Up north, in a lot of places, title companies don't do real estate closings, attorneys do. New York, for example.
Yes.
Wait, no, we have like.
Here, yes, you have law firms that, one of their specialties is real estate closings. But Signature Title, our affiliate title company, has 2 attorneys. One of them's a part owner. Yes.
I'm a little confused. You're at closing. Isn't it a binding agreement that they sign with the listing agent broker? And they can just say,
Welcome
well,
to
you made
commercial.
Well, it's an issue in itself. There's not a judge at the closing. I mean, I agree with what he's saying. You got to wait. I mean, isn't that a loophole?
No, his ace in the hole is the title company representative is actually an affiliate of Signature, so therefore your interest is covered. So until he's willing to comply, they're not going anywhere, so that makes more sense.
Because you do have a agreed upon document from that owner, I pay you the commission.
I mean, you're saying it happens.
You have to understand the mentality of commercial is very different than residential.
So what's the overall spread on commercials? Is it 3%, 4%? I mean.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there are 2 main statutes that you'll see in the left-hand columns as you go through the chapters. One of them is 475. So you know that 475 immediately triggers FREC, the Florida Real Estate Commission. However, if you look on the top of 17, starting with line 4 through 16, you have chapter 455. That is the statute that gives the department its authority. So when you see 475, you know that this discussion is coming from the commission's perspective. Whereas when you see the Department of Business and Professional Regulation, DBPR, you know that it's coming from the department. At one point, like a year or two after I got in this, up until the late 70s, the Florida Real Estate Commission had total control of the regulation of the real estate industry. There was no Department of Business and Professional Regulation. In this state, they have something called the Sunshine Law Reviews, which periodically they review certain statutes to make sure they're still viable at this point in time. Well, you had a situation where 4 brokers were governing the whole real estate industry. So they had brokers governing brokers. Obviously, when you analyze that situation, probably not in the best interest of the public.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, that's when they started breaking down everything. And in the next chapter, we'll talk about the division and the department and FREC. But just kind of give you a heads up as to where we're going with this. Now, there's a direct tie-in with the commission and the department. I even give you an example there. And it talks about the regulation of unlicensed real estate activity. What she just described before, and she got compensated, the FREC couldn't do anything to her. FREC can take action against you if you're a licensee, or they can refuse you to give you a license if you're an applicant. But if you're just Joe Blow off the street and you're getting paid, FREC has no authority over you. You'll see a little later in the chapters, they fixed that problem. Now, the penalty for unlicensed real estate activity is a 3rd-degree felony and a $5,000 penalty and up to 5 years in jail. But when I first started, until probably 10, maybe 15 years ago, they couldn't do anything about people who lived in the condo who were helping the people who lived there to sell their units. And you know darn well they weren't doing it for free. But probably a whole lot cheaper than if they went with their realtor. But that's what was weird, because if you look at what FREC can do, going after unlicensed persons is not something that FREC can do. So they created that new statute under 455. So the department can go after them. FREC still can't go after them because 475 simply doesn't allow it. So any unlicensed activity, any disciplinary action taken in that is to the department, not to the commission. Okay, now we can go back to where it was. Let's go to page 22. On page 22, under the time periods, if you submit an application, but you screwed up and left out something, they have 30 days to let you know that you did not complete it properly. And once you fix it, now the time starts over again. They have 90 days to approve it. Fortunately, you probably will not see that amount done. On the top of 23, here we go again with the armed force members. Let's go with the bracket from line 1 to 22. On page 23. Question. Is what we're about to read from the department's perspective or from FREC's perspective? How do you know that? Without reading the paragraph, how do you know that?
Because it talks about it, what the 4 versus the 5.
No, because it says 455. And we just got to say 2 minutes ago that 455 is the department and 475 is FREC. And then, of course, when you start reading through the paragraph, you don't see them mention FREC. Now, this is not about reducing the fees for getting a license. This is about reciprocity.
So what exactly about reciprocity?
I'm sorry?
What exactly about reciprocity?
That means if they have a license in one state, and they move to a different one.
Right, so that they're making that free across the board for every state?
For every state that's a part of it. I don't know if it's every state, as it doesn't say. But it does say, no, it actually does. If you look at the second paragraph, it says the applicant must at the time of application to the department currently hold a valid license or a corresponding profession in another state, U.S. territory, or any foreign jurisdiction.
I've been practicing these days. Is that new? Is that new since 2002?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I wouldn't get too excited until you check it out. It says to qualify for a reciprocal real estate license, the eligible military applicant, spouse, or surviving spouse.
I'm a veteran.
That's all the current valid real estate license.
So I qualify, right?
No. After satisfactory background check is complete, the keeper must issue a reciprocal real estate license without requiring the applicant to complete pre-license. I'm surprised that that wasn't picked up when you applied.
Well, I could have gotten that, I looked at the fee waiver thing, but I actually called them, I looked at the fee waiver thing, and they had said I have to provide my DD Form 214, which I have to go and get that because my goofy self lost my DD.
And there's also a website,
Okay.
which is right there on lines 20 through 22.
20.
But Dan, can I ask you, but this reciprocity, you have to have a valid real estate license or another type of license already in
Right.
another state?
Yes.
Right.
So what
Yes.
other state are you licensed in?
I will, for real this call.
Oh, you're going the other way. Now, they're going the other way, you have to know the rules over there.
Mm-hmm.
They may not do the same.
Okay.
How long do you have to be in Florida to be a resident?
It's a year.
It depends on what you're talking about, is the answer to that
I
question.
guess that's true.
For real estate, it's on page 23. Starting with line 23
Oh, 4 months.
to line 33.
Do you want us to bracket that?
Yes,
Which
24, 25 to,
on page 23, starting with line 25
To 33.
to 33, yeah, by one paragraph.
4 months.
But it's not just 4 months. It's 4 consecutive. So if I came down to Florida and lived in a tent for 5 months, will 475 consider me to be a resident?
Yes.
The significance there is this. In Georgia, I had a real estate license. We have an agreement with Georgia and several other states for what they refer to as, and we can look at in a second, mutual recognition, which is not reciprocity. With mutual recognition, if you meet the requirements, you only have to take a 40-question exam on the laws of that state to qualify to get a corresponding license. But the problem is, I was in Florida for 5 months living in the tent. I've already exceeded the time. I am now a resident of Florida. The mutual recognition means while I was still a resident of Georgia, I submitted for the mutual recognition license. Once I become under 475 a legal resident of Florida, there is no reciprocity, because the reciprocity they talked about people was only for military. We do not have reciprocity with anybody. We have the mutual recognition, which starts at the bottom of page 23. The one catch to that is you do have to take a test. Yes?
So like a Canadian snowbird can get their realtor license if they're here for a Canadian like snowbird can get
Yeah.
their license because they can be here for 6 months.
Do they have a license in Canada?
No. And if they do,
If Canada and Florida have a mutual recognition agreement, which they don't, they could use it. But if they're here 6 months consecutively, you can't use the mutual recognition to be able to get the other license. So if I'm planning on moving to Georgia, and I have my Florida real estate license, I should do that mutual recognition exam and stuff before I leave. Because if I go to Georgia and then I stay there long enough to meet the residency requirement under the real estate law there, now I have to do whatever their education requirements are.
I'm currently licensed in the state of New York as a broker. Will this be in effect with me as well?
No, because I don't think we have mutual recognition with New York. We do with Connecticut. Which obviously doesn't help.
Shit, okay.
Nobody likes Connecticut.
Well, we know you're doing it.
No, if you watched the football last night. It was a wonderful, boring game.
Yes.
Because you were expecting, 30 or 40 points from each one of them.
That was bought and paid for in advance, thank you very much.
Let's see, was you for the Rams or was you?
I'm just saying,
It's a horrible game.
the last 3 games this season.
All right, so several thoughts from this mutual recognition, which continues on the next page. I think the gray box on page 24, it's not a highlight, but I think it's a Reader's Digest version of everything else that's there. So to me, if I'm reviewing what's on that page and a half, that little gray box probably has the key points I'm gonna wanna remember.
So we're highlighting mutual recognition that
No, we are not highlighting.
you're putting
The gray box, I'm simply saying, is probably the best place
Well, I'm right.
to review the information about mutual recognition.
no breath.
No right. Well, it could be practice, just no highlight. All right, on page 25, it talks about sales associate qualification for licensure, which you should already know. Because you had to meet those requirements when you submitted your application. Do I have to have a high school diploma?
Yes.
No, I do not. I can have a GED. Do I have to be a citizen of the United States?
No.
Do I have to be a resident of the state of Florida?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Not.
I don't have to be a citizen, I don't have to be a resident. I live in Ohio, Cleveland, as a matter of fact. And I want a Florida real estate license.
You got it.
Actually, I want to become a broker. So here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go online and find a course for licensing in Florida. I'm going to take the course, I'm going to pass it, I'm going to take the state exam at one of the testing sites that works together with the testing sites in Florida and get my sales associate license. Then I'm going to go online and take the 45-hour course. I've got a friend here that has a real estate office. I'm going to put my license with them. Now, I haven't set foot in Florida yet. Now, 2 years have gone by. I now have renewed my license at least once. I've taken the 45-hour. Now I'm going to take my broker's course. Online. I pass that. I take the state exam, pass it. I'm an active, and I opened up an office in my home in Ohio, which in Ohio is allowed. I'm now an active broker. And I have never once set foot in Florida. Because nowhere there does it say you have to be in Florida. Wait till we get to the part about the office, you'll love it. It's even better. Now, number 7. Or line 7, I'm sorry, I was 25. I actually go back to line 6. Now, why the heck do they need my social security number? Are you ready for this? If you are not current on your child support, they can take your license away from you or not give one to you. So you ladies better damn straight start paying your child support. It's my class, it could be my joke.
Yes, that's right.
If, you don't have to be a citizen, how are they gonna get your social if you don't have one because you're not a citizen?
You have to have something equivalent to it in order to work your,
No, I have a social, I'm not a citizen.
yeah.
I can get one without being-
You can't get one, you can't get
Say that,
I have a social security,
Oh,
and I'm not a
yes, you're
citizen.
Canadian.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, what do they do?
I mean, to her point, you mentioned child support, but what about somebody from another country? What if they were a murderer or something? I mean, what,
Or your visa number?
well, if you're a murderer, they
I mean-
probably would take your license away from you.
Right,
Or not give it to you to start with.
right,
But the sole purpose for that social security number is to pick on people that are, to locate people that are not current with their child support.
specific to child support,
Yes.
okay.
As a matter of fact, there's a gray box at the bottom of the page.
Okay.
Let's put a bracket around that little baby. Now, you gotta pay close attention here. There's a sentence I want you to highlight. It's at the end of the first paragraph of that gray box. It says the social security number is used to determine whether applicants are in compliance with child support obligations.
Where is this again? Can you repeat that?
225, in the gray box under license applications.
Right.
The last sentence of the first paragraph.
Real estate license is valid for that.
No, you're not in the right
Okay,
place.
there's one up, that's not the list.
We want to highlight that one?
Yes. Yeah, the one that I just read is highlighted. Then, the sentence below it, a real estate license application is valid for 2 years from the date the complete application is received by the department. That is also highlighted. So that means you have 2 stars in 2 sentences. So figure out how many times you can take the state exam during the 2-year period.
24.
No, I'm talking about the class test. If you fail a class test, and then you fail it again, you get to sit back through it again. That should be enough motivation to get you through the first time. On page 26, we have another gray box. That is another Reader Digest version of the regulation pertaining to pre-licensed courses. Probably want to put a bracket around that. It is not a highlight. Something I hadn't mentioned, and fortunately we got to it. It's the first sentence under that gray box, that regulation pertaining. Can't miss more than 8 hours.
What's that? First sentence in the gray box.
Yeah, first.
At the bottom of the page, lines 6 through 9. And the little figure below it should have a bracket.
The whole figure of the whole thing?
Yeah, like starting with line 6 at the bottom of the page. Should have a bracket. Now, you do have a highlight. The highlight is where it says, in that figure, it says Florida licensed attorney. And then, just to the right of that, it says exempt. That's highlighted. And what is the attorney exempt from? Pre-licensing course, which is this course. And when they get the broker's license, they have to take the broker's course. So when they talk about what attorneys are exempt from, find the answer that says pre-licensed course and market. Or pick something else and get it wrong. The answer is B, in case you can get the rest of it. Just kidding. And you'll notice that the broker is also exempt from the continuing ed. The reason for that is because they have continuing ed to maintain their bar membership. And they're allowed to use it as the 3 hours credit they need for continuing ed for real estate license. Okay. I've had more fun than I can stand. I think we will pull the plug here. Thank you very much, guys, for showing up tonight. And don't forget about Sunday grade.